Yo, team, welcome to another episode of the Exam Coach podcast. Happy to be back on the airwaves after a short break because I was just pumping out YouTube videos and Snapchat too much. And I thought, you know what? I need to do a podcast. So here I am, about to absolutely crush one over the next 20 to 30 minutes, let's say. That's what I'll shoot for roughly. Okay, what we're going to talk about today. We're going to look at another key topic to do with exam success, and that is exam motivation. So this podcast is going to be a bit of a spin-off from the YouTube video I recently released, and this was titled 5 Ways to Not Motivate Yourself for Exams. Not the most eloquent of titles there. I don't think Billy Shakespeare would be too chuffed with that. Maybe 5 ways not to motivate yourself for your exams. And then stick a thee or a thou on the end, and you get. But yeah, not great English from me. But it's an episode title, so there you go. I've linked it in the description below if you want to check that out. It's a good video actually. It's got some good points in it. Anyway, what I also want to do is I want to build on this. So I'm going to recap and add a few more points into the 5 ways not to motivate yourself, so you know exactly what you shouldn't be doing. And on top of that, I'm going to add in some recommendations about what I actually think you should be doing to motivate yourself. So some real techniques there, as well as some practical ways. So not just the vision of what the motivation should look like, but how do you actually do that? Because this is what we're all about in the the exam coach community, if you want to call it that. 8-towners, 9-villas, people who check in regularly and crush it. It's about doing stuff. It's about getting stuff done. And this is something that I've worked on so hard for myself, because I know it's one of my big weaknesses, especially I'd say from maybe 16 to 21-ish. I was very good at talking a good game. I can talk the back legs off a donkey, I can really give it the large one. And I can chat some absolute rubbish and just not follow through on what I say or what I said. And a big thing for me now is when you say you're going to do something, you do it. And you really do it. And I mean, by doing it, you back it up with cold, hard execution. It's just, you get stuff done. No complaining, no, painting big bright ideas and then not following up on them. No kind of chatting a load of breeze to a load of friends about what you're going to do this year in the gym, what you're going to do for your work, what you're going to do on the sports field, what you're going to do in the drama hall, what you're going to do in the musical instrument area, what you're going to do with your new hobby, how you're going to treat your family members, your friends, all that. Don't talk about it, do it. Or talk about it for a little while and make sure you do it. Because for me, that was something that I was just terrible at. I kept on just making huge promises and big expectations, putting them on myself, and then just never following through because I'd never actually held myself accountable and said, look, man, you're not doing any of this. You're just chatting up, whatever. You're just not following through. It's as simple as that. I'm kind of thinking through in my head now, like, what's a better way to explain this? But it's very, very simple. It's very easy to understand. There are some people who talk big ideas and don't do stuff, and I definitely have that as a weakness of mine. And I'm always trying to make sure if I say I'm going to do something, you do it, and you get better and better at it as time goes by. Another thing I'd point out, actually, just before we move into the meat of this podcast, is sometimes on the DM on Snapchat and WhatsApp, I see students say, and I get it, I get this perspective where they say, look, I'm not passionate about exams or any of the topics I study, but I'm really passionate about making videos on YouTube, or I'm really passionate about dance or sport or a random hobby. And then I say, okay, well, show me like some examples. Show me some of the work that you've done. Is there evidence of like something you've produced? And more often than not, there's only really maybe one or two examples. Now, I know that, when you're young, you don't have a lot of time to build up that portfolio. But a question I think you should be always asking yourself is, and never shoot down your passions, always pursue them, but check them in that, figure out whether you're chasing the idea, so what that passionate thing's going to give you. So because you've seen some dancers on Instagram, or you've seen, the bling bling lifestyle of a professional footballer on social media, usually, again, are you just chasing the thing you're going to get, or are you actually in love with the process? Are you actually in love with just dancing in a room on your own? Are you actually in love with just kicking a ball against the wall all day because that's what you like doing? And do you actually go and do that as well on a day-to-day basis? Do you find yourself making the time for it? Because I guarantee you, if it's your passion and you truly are passionate about it, you make the time to do it. You do it almost subconsciously. It's something that you always do. And that's why a lot of the time I say, okay, how many hours do you have in the day? You're spending X amount at school, let's say 8, give or take, because some schools go to school for different lengths of time. But you have time outside of that to get your hobbies done and your passions done, and then take the skills from exams that you need to take and apply them in any area of life that you want. But just make sure that if you're saying you're passionate about stuff, and I'm only telling you this because I did it, make sure you're actually doing the stuff that it's because you like the journey and the process associated with that activity that you're passionate about, and not just because it's what you're going to get is the thing that you're chasing. It's the big thing. Like, if you want to look at it 20 years down the line from where you are now, it's the big question of, do you do a job, for example, for the money, or do you do it because you love it? It's a balance, isn't it? You got to make a living, but you also want to enjoy it whilst you go. And just thinking about that, how your passions unfold is important. Okay, so let's lay some ground. I'm just going to take a sip of water here, bit of liquid thinking. So let's take a look at motivation from a scientific point of view. A bit of background based on the science provided by Daniel Pink in his book Drive. There are two types of motivation. Intrinsic motivation. This is motivation to perform an activity for its own sake and your own personal satisfaction. And then there's extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation, this is where we're motivated to earn a material reward or avoid punishment. So a nice way of thinking about it, if you want to get a little bit Latin-y and dive into the classics, intrinsic, I did Latin for a little while, and that word "in" at the beginning usually means inside, coming from within. I know that's a huge cutting edge insight from me right there, but it basically is true that intrinsic means coming from within. Extrinsic, that means coming from outside or outside the body. Again, not hugely articulate there from me, but that's the gist of it that you need to understand. So, both types of motivation, they have their uses. And for exams, I think we should be looking at intrinsic motivation as the key driver. And this is because intrinsic motivation seems to be something that's a bit more durable than extrinsic motivation. It's less reliant on external factors. For example, extrinsic motivation, you need to have something material coming into the frame. You need to have some sort of physical reward or punishment to avoid in order to actually be motivated. Whereas intrinsic motivation, it just comes from within. It's kind of made up. It's the reasons driving you that actually motivates you to want to do well in exams. And it means that you can really run that marathon that exams require you to run by being motivated over an extended period of time consistently. A favorite quote on motivation is just my personal one. Commitment means staying loyal to what you said you were going to do long after the mood you said it in has left you. That was huge for me, especially when I was making all these big claims about what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, and then never doing it. This quote really kind of gave me a push in the right direction. So let's go through just quick fire the 5 points on how not to motivate yourself for exams that I mentioned in the YouTube video. Number 1, becoming motivated by how long you study for. This is just absolutely crucial. So many people say, oh, I did 8 hours, 10 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours of study. And you see that as a factor which, pumps them up and keeps them going. It doesn't mean anything, guys. It really doesn't. Like, it is about how productive you are with covering the topics in the syllabus, how efficiently and effectively you are covering those topics using spaced repetition, active recall, two key revision techniques that I talk about the whole time, making sure you are using them, covering topics. Time doesn't matter. You cannot associate or attribute a set amount of time to a result in an exam. It doesn't work like that. So, first step, don't become motivated by how long you study for. If anything, become motivated by how well and how efficiently you are covering topics in the syllabus that carry a lot of marks, and you're able to, actively recall them. So that is being able to test yourself on them, look at the information, look away, and remember and recite that information in the way the examiner wants to see it as put on the mark scheme. That is good. And then obviously spacing out your repetition of that so that just before you forget the information, you refresh it, and therefore it becomes lodged in your long-term memory, ready for the exam. You deliver that information in the exam, then you can forget about it completely if you want to. And you probably will, to be honest, because there'll be no reason to continue your spaced repetition, meaning you will eventually forget that information as your brain takes on new information that as you go through life. Next thing, second way not to motivate yourself for exams is money. Money, it falls into that extrinsic motivational set of factors. It can be brought into play and taken out of play pretty easily, and it's just not built for the marathon runners here. It's your parents, for example. I'm assuming that's where the money would come from if they were going to pay you to do well in exams. A lot of the time, people get paid on what grade they get. So, for example, if I get an A, I get 20 quid from my dad or whatever. This stuff, it sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't, but I just brought it up because I know there will be some people who have thought about this. If you are getting paid for the end of your exams, the grade you get, Daniel Pink actually talks about how extrinsic motivation works a lot better for short-term mechanical tasks. So, for example, if you were to get paid at the end of every day of revision, that would work a lot better, because at the end of every day, you'd say, right, I've got my reward, my motivation's there throughout the day to do the boring, mundane tasks such as revision, and you would constantly be getting rewarded at a regular interval, not needing as much intrinsic motivation to carry you through that kind of marathon of exam revision, which is what it is. It does take a while to do revision for these exams, and that's how we got to see it. But the key thing you got to remember here is that depending on how much money you would be motivated by to actually get, so for example, if you were paid £1 at the end of every day, I don't think that would motivate you too much. It might do, but it's not exactly, I don't know. It depends how much money would motivate you to do a lot of revision each day. Essentially, someone's going to lose a lot of money if you decide to use money for what it actually would work for, which is those shorter term goal and reward cycles. So I don't think it's a great way to motivate yourself. The third way not to motivate yourself for exams is wanting to get high grades to impress your parents. As much as possible, you want to find your own reasons for doing well. Unnecessary external pressure is often brought on us when we think about other people's opinions of our achievements. You've got to find that satisfaction, because otherwise it's just your parents' satisfaction that you're working for. And that's not going to be enough to pull you through the tough times when you really are trying to work through problems, or you're really trying to remember something or understand how to do an exam when it's sunny outside in April and you're stuck inside trying to get kind of the final pieces of revision done so that you're ready to go for that crucial exam period. Number 4, being motivated by what will happen if you don't do something, or the punishment that will come from it. Fear can be a huge driver and a huge motivator, but I think one of the issues here is stress, is pressure. If you're constantly motivated by fear, it's going to take its toll on you eventually, and you're going to start feeling a bit run down, stressed, anxious, nervous, and that's really, really not what we want to have anytime around exam season. We want to have channeled motivation that's positive, not reliant on fear. Rather, it's chasing after the enjoyment of the process, finding the skills and habits that you're doing enjoyable and valuable for later on in life, and then looking forward to the opportunity of getting into that exam room and showing what you know. Number 5, the 5th way to not motivate yourself to do well in an exam is comparing yourself to others. Always looking over your shoulder, measuring yourself up to other people. This is not something that's personal to you. For example, it's reliant on other people and how well they're doing. And you're never going to achieve your potential if you're in a class full of people who are maybe, under par in terms of their ability to do exams or their drive, their work ethic. You're always just going to hang around or hover around that capability level and not see what your potential actually is. So you've got to make sure your motivation is coming from within and is not based on how good, in kind of quotation marks there, other people are. Okay, I want to move on to some motivation builders. So some ways I think you can build motivation for yourself. Practical way. Well, I'll talk you through the theory first, and then we'll go into some practical ways. So the first thing about exams and motivation that I think we all need to understand is there is value in the process of doing exams. The skills we build can be applied, and allowing them to motivate us to really squeeze all the juice out the orange of exams. That's a pretty juicy metaphor right there. But it's so important that we understand this, that there's a bigger picture. There's a 20-year picture here where a skill, I mentioned the whole time, like organization, time management, handling pressure, can be used in later life. You can use these things in whatever area you like. And perhaps try not to be motivated so much by just the grade or learning the knowledge. I don't think those are huge motivational factors. In fact, yeah, they'll open up doors and they'll get you to the next stage. Great. But it's more personal journey of how you can really kind of build up your arsenal of capabilities when it comes to achieving tasks and getting things done, delivering work on time, figuring out your own systems for doing things, getting good at being able to structure your days so you can get stuff done. Handling pressure is a key one. I mentioned it on Instagram Live the other day. Pressure is something that everybody's going to have at some stage in some area of life. It often happens in jobs, because jobs are, if you live in a capitalist society, inherently competitive, and with any competition there is pressure. And you've got to get used to it. And there are some people who say, "Oh, I'm just not good at handling pressure." I think at times I can be not amazing at handling pressure, but I'm trying to teach myself how to get better and better and better. And now I can really act pretty coolly and calmly in very high pressure situations. Exams was one of the first opportunities I had to kind of develop these skills and make sure that I really paid attention to it, because I understood that this was going to be something that would be useful later down the line in life. I was even thinking the other day about something a little more specific. So you look at history as a subject. I studied history all through school, and then I did it at uni as well. And at uni, it really got away from me a bit in terms of it got very academic and really bogged down in kind of academic jargon. I didn't really enjoy it that much. And I hardly went to any of the lectures, to be honest. I was just working for a business that I worked for, a couple of startups, and earning money to fund my way through uni and have a good time, basically. But one of the things that really did strike me is if you look at, and if you're doing GCSE, A-level, or any kind of history over the world, it's all about looking at sources, right? Analyzing sources, looking at the context behind them, looking at who's wrote the source, who's writing the history, what opinions they may have that could make their historical account a bit less reliable, or we have to take that into account when we're looking at it and comparing against other things, and trying to really piece together what would be a reliable and an accurate reflection of the historical past. So when you think about this, I was looking at Facebook the other day and a fake news scandal. Being able to look at historical sources and vet them empirically and rationally for truth is something that a skill set that you could apply to fake news. You could weed out fake news and unreliable sources of media information by using the historical source analysis skill set. So think about that. There are real ways here that you can start applying this stuff. And I've given some high level ones like organization, which are very kind of wide spanning, and then some very granular ones like source analysis of historical sources. So think about that. It's an important thing. Skills, the journey, how you can apply them later, that should be a motivating factor for you. The next thing is motivating ourselves because of our values. I love the idea that when you put work in, you get something out. I absolutely love that as a principle. I don't like the idea of everything being down to chance, everything being down to just luck or predisposed circumstances that you can't control. It's so important that if you find an activity where it's fair, so to speak, and you can put in a certain amount of work and effort and try hard and really try and go above and beyond, and you will get something out of it because that's how the system works. Invest in that system. Get involved in it because it's something that you can control. If there's something that's based totally on things that you can't control and factors outside of your influence, then I wouldn't, me personally, and I'd recommend for you as well, don't invest in it. Don't take an interest. Don't, because no matter how much time you put into it, it doesn't seem like you can actually get anything out that's relatable or proportional to the time you've invested. And that's something about exams that really motivated me. I knew that if I put in enough work, if I applied myself, I would be able to make progress here. It wasn't based on chance, on luck, on anything I couldn't control. I was in control of everything, and that motivated me to get stuff done and really hit these books hard and reach my goals. The next thing, get motivated by the time in your life that you spend revising for exams compared to your whole life. It's minimal. It's hardly anything. It's a pinprick. But the ability for them to actually set you on a completely different trajectory in life, whether it's the school you go to, the people you meet, all those different things that exam results can dictate, it's huge. For a tiny proportion of time, you are getting a potentially massive change in direction and trajectory in your life. That should motivate you. That should get you up in the morning and saying, right, I've got 3, 4, 5 months here to make a difference to potentially how the rest of my life is going to pan out. That's huge. Think about that. Next thing, motivation by the standards we have for ourselves. When I was getting bad grades, one of the things I just got fed up with is just having a D next to my name. Yeah, my surname is Davey, but I only wanted one D there, not two, because it's just a bit crap. That's not what I'm about. That's not how I roll, and I don't think that's how you roll either. I don't want to have the worst stuff next to my name. I want to have the good stuff, best stuff, valuable stuff, stuff that other people appreciate and enjoy, not rubbish. I want to have good. Yeah, repeating myself there because I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but think about it. Your name, and it's not about pride or ego. It's just about having standards for yourself. Come on, you can do it. You're worth more than you think. Get to work, do some good work, and be proud of what you're doing. And again, not in an arrogant or nasty way. It's just having standards for what you do. And in a funny way, that's actually going to impact other people around you, because if you come in with a great attitude and a high standard, that's going to rub off on other people and they're going to have a great time and enjoy themselves more because of that. So that's the fourth way. I want to talk about some practical tips because we're running a bit short on time and I want to make sure you have these before I depart. First thing to do in order to sustain motivation is constantly refresh what matters to you. Constantly refresh positivity, constantly refresh the reasons why you're revising for these exams. Whether it's at the beginning of every day, looking at depending on what you do in the morning, it could just be looking at some bullet pointed notes on these are the reasons why I'm motivated for my exams. 1, 2, 3. Number one, because I understand that exams are a game where if you put work in, you're going to get a result that's fair out. That's why I want to invest in it. Number two, I'm motivated because I know that there are skills here that I can learn and then apply later on in life. Number three, I'm motivated because I have this standard for myself and who I am. And when I do something, I give it 100% and I want to get the best out of me and the activity. Those are just 3 examples there, and it's really connecting the theory and the practical side of it that I've just mentioned, but just refreshing them in your head every day and finding inspirational ways to do this, whether it's an inspirational video on YouTube. There are loads out there. Just type in motivation and you're good. It's usually some guy screaming down the microphone, but there are different types that you can find, and find one that resonates with you. And it's just refreshing these basics of, if you work hard, if you're persistent, if you look for the positives, you're going to get stuff out that is going to be valuable to you, and it's going to keep you going, keep you motivated. It's a constant ritual and routine, this, every morning or every day. Even when you're down, just look at something positive, advertise to yourself in a way. And that's how you're going to be able to keep this stuff going. Like there's no secret. It is routine and ritual. Doing it every day, getting it done, refresh. And I'm refreshing myself over and over again now through the way I'm speaking, but because I've repeated this now, you should really get this idea of, it is about repetition. It is about doing it every single day, looking at these things that motivate you, reminding yourself of the reasons. Next thing you can do, break things down. Don't look at it as one big mountain you've got to climb. Otherwise, you're going to have to summon up huge amounts of motivation. Motivation. You want to break it up into smaller tasks. Get motivated to just write a couple of lines. Get motivated to write 3 bullets on a flashcard. Break down and celebrate the small wins. Don't look at things as some huge task, because you're never going to be able to get motivated for that. It seems impossible. To get motivated, there's got to be some glimmer of hope, some light at the end of the tunnel that you can see, so you're actually like, hey, this is possible, I could do it. So every day, break down the revision. Just think about the small building blocks. If you're struggling to get started, just do one thing and then build. Do 2 things, 3 things. Maybe you could write half a page of A4 notes. Then try and fill the rest of that A4 page up. You got 1 page. Could you do another page? Try and do another page. You get distracted, okay? Take a 5-minute break, drink a water, talk to yourself a bit and say, hey, look, I'm going to hit those books again. I'm going to try and do this A4 page. I'm going to really look at these words, say them out loud in my head, really make sure the information's sinking in. I'm going to read through the notes again. I'm going to put them away to one side, and then I'm going to try and remember everything that I just made notes on and write it out on a new sheet of paper, getting the reps in. The other thing I'd say, third and final practical point, is guard your mind. Guard your mind against things that are going to demotivate you. I've talked about 2 things there that are going to motivate you practically, but also think empowering content is great, but disempowering content can also be a real poison to your motivation. It can kill it. If you see things that promise you the shortcut, the easy way, the good life without actually putting in any work. There's loads of stuff like this on the internet that try and teach you, the quick short step, the shortcut hack, or just something that doesn't quite add up. It's usually because it doesn't, and it doesn't work. And I'd say 99% of the time it is. And you lack so much context through the internet about other people's lives, situations, circumstances that mean they've been able to do certain things. And the core thing you need to understand is no one has ever achieved anything without putting in a hell of a lot of hard work and getting smarter, making sure that the work they put in is more efficient over time, looking at where they can invest their time best. People don't just become stuff by just sitting around doing nothing or watching random Netflix shows and popcorn and sleeping and generally just not applying themselves to the task. It's about application, doing it every day, getting motivated every day, rinse and repeat. And you'll find that over time, I know this might sound to you like, oh God, this is too much. It's repetitive, boring, dull. But you'll find that once you actually get a roll on and get a rhythm up, routine, the journey, the process, it's very, very addictive. And it's a positive addiction because it feels great and it doesn't harm you as long as you're getting your balance right. You're not just becoming kind of a workaholic and damaging your social relationships or other areas of your life. Balancing out the areas of your life that matter to you and you value, and really going about it in a regimented way, and setting out that routine, getting it done, having a bit of flexibility in there so you can roll with the punches if new stuff comes on that you hadn't anticipated, and living that way. And at least for exams and exam season, that definitely worked for me and a lot of the students I've worked with. Getting a good routine in place has been huge to just allowing them to have that daily motivation to get stuff done and build up those little wins and accumulate it over time. You're left with a winning streak there that's going to pay dividends come exam day. Okay, I'm going to check out. It's been a cracker. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Really went into some detail there on motivation. Please apply stuff. Look at the theory, yeah, but more importantly, look at the practical stuff I mentioned and put your own spin on it. Use your initiative. Figure out, what I've said, and then build on it. Make it tailored to you and how you like to do things, and just put it to good use. Anyway, any questions, let me know. You know where to get me. WhatsApp, Snapchat, they're good places. And I am going to check out. See you later.